Hi, I'm Heather from Sew Me How in Chester. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do a video that I've promised for ages and ages and ages that I'm going to do. So at Sew Me How in Chester we do lots of sewing workshops and craft workshops, and one of the most popular ones is our Introduction to the Sewing Machine workshop. And on that workshop we learn all about the sewing machine, the features, the different presser feet that you can use, all sorts of, the different stitches, all sorts of different bits and pieces. And then what we do when we've gone through everything is we put everything we've learned into practice and we make an envelope cushion cover. And on the envelope cushion cover we have some decorative stitching and we create a buttonhole and we sew a button on. So lots of the ladies that have been on the course have asked for me to do this video so that when they go home they can remember how they made their envelope cushion cover and make more. So here it is. So if you do like this channel, can I ask please that you subscribe and click the like button, and that will enable me to grow this channel and do more and more videos. Thank you. The first thing that we need then to make our cushion cover is a piece of fabric, and our fabric is 15 inches wide and it's 36 inches long. So our piece of fabric is 36 inches long by 15 inches wide, and that will create a cushion cover that is perfect for a cushion that is 14 inches by 14 inches. So the first thing that I'm going to do on the reverse side of our fabric, on the short edge, the 15-inch edge, I'm going to mark on the short edge of our piece of fabric, the 15-inch side. We're actually going to, when we sew this, we're going to turn it over an inch and turn it over an inch again and then sew it. So I'm just going to mark where those folds are going to go. So I'm going to turn it over an inch. So I'm actually going to mark on this piece of fabric. I'll turn the tape this way. I'm actually going to mark on this piece of fabric 2 inches and 3 inches, and that means when I turn this over an inch it's going to reach that first mark there, and the second one it's going to reach the second one. Okay, so I'm going to do that a couple of times. 2 inches and 3 inches and 2 inches and 3 inches, and then I'm going to do the same on the opposite end of the fabric, again on the 15-inch side. Just going to put a couple of marks on. So 2 inches and 3 inches, 2 inches and 3 inches. Then I'm going to take that then to the iron and I'm going to press this. I'm going to turn this fabric to the first mark and I'm going to press it. And I'm going to turn it to the second mark and I'm going to press it. Now I'm going to be really careful because the pen that I've used to make these marks is a friction pen, and once there it is, it's a friction pen, and once I iron over this, these black marks that I've put on our fabric are going to disappear. So you can see the little marks there. So when I'm doing the first fold, I'm just going to be really careful that I don't then iron over this second mark because I'll lose where I've got to turn it to. I've got my ironing board. This is the short end of my fabric, the 15-inch end. I'm just going to turn it to there and press. And I'm just going to do it again, turn it to the second set of marks that I've made and press again. And you'll see as soon as I iron over those marks, they've disappeared. Fabulous pens, these, absolutely fabulous. I'll try and leave a link below to where you can buy them from. Okay, so again on the other end of the cushion cover I'm going to just create the folding it to the first set of lines. So fold it over an inch to the first set of marks that I've made, press it, fold it over to the second set and press it again. Okay, so we've ironed our fabric, the seams at either end or the hems at either end, and they're folded over. Now you may want to pop in a few pins just to keep it in place whilst you sew it. You could always use quilting clips like that. Okay, so all we're going to do is, with our straight stitch, so 0-1 on my machine, I'm going to sew really close to the edge of this fold from the wrong side of the fabric. I'm going to lock in my stitching. That means I'm going to go forward and backwards at the beginning. Just lock in my stitching, and then I'm going to keep going all the way down. I'm going to remove my pins just before I get to them. I never like to sew over pins. All the way to the end, and then I'm going to go forward and backwards again to lock my stitches in at the end. Okay. Now the other side is going to be slightly different, so we're going to use a decorative stitch on the other end. Again, it's been turned over an inch and then another inch, and this time we're going to sew from the right side of the fabric because we're going to do a decorative stitch, and I want to put some pins in just to keep it in place, so I'm going to put them in from the right side of the fabric. And whereas before we sewed quite close to this fold here, this time we want going to sew our decorative stitch right in the middle of this seam, because the decorative stitches sometimes move side to side and we don't want it catching this flap here if we sew close to the edge. So we need to place our needle so that it's in the centre of this seam. Now with a decorative stitch we don't need to particularly lock in. It's fine, we can just sew it. So on my machine I've got a few different decorative stitches, you can see them there. I'm going to choose number 34. You'll probably not be able to see it very well because my pattern's quite heavy on my fabric, but it matches quite well with the theme of the fabric. So I've got my needle in about the centre of that seam. I just want to keep my eye on this, the edge of the fabric and where that is. And an easier way is to use a magnetic seam guide. So it's just this little tool. It's got a nice little smiley face on it, but it's just a magnet on the back and a straight edge. I'm just going to put that up to the edge of the fabric, and then I'm going to use that as my guide to keep my stitching nice and straight all the way down. So I want to start with my needle in the fabric and away to go. Okay, so there's my decorative stitch. You can just about see it. Little leaves. I could have used a contrasting thread so you'd notice it more. So now we've got our cushion cover, or we've got the basis of our cushion cover. We need to fold it to create the cushion cover itself. So you're going to have your fabric facing the right way up towards you, and your decorative stitch is going to be at the top. You're going to fold that decorative stitch down about 8 inches. Okay, so that is 8 inches that side, 8 inches that side, and then I'm going to fold the bottom of the cushion cover up so that it goes over that piece of fabric. So the whole of my cushion cover from top to bottom is 14 inches. Okay, so from there down to the bottom is 14 inches. Mine's slightly short. Okay, so 14 inches that side and 14 inches the other side, and then I'm going to pop some pins in again, both sides. Okay, so I've got both sides of my cushion cover pinned, and all I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to my machine. I'm going to swap it back to the straight stitch again. So on my machine that was a 0-1 stitch, and I'm going to sew about 1/2 inch in all the way down this side and all the way down this other side. So 1/2 inch in all the way down this side. Okay. Place my fabric underneath my presser foot, lower the presser foot, lower the needle into the fabric. I'm going to take out that first pin. When I'm sewing this, I just need to be really careful when I get to by here, because I don't want this to catch in the feet. So before I get to there, I'm going to stop, just make sure that's nice and flat before I carry on sewing. So again, we're going to lock in our stitches, so forward and backwards. Right, so when I get there, I'm just going to stop, make sure that's nice and flat. I'm going to take that pin out. There we go. Forward and backwards at the end to lock in my stitches, and we've done that side. We're going to do exactly the same on the other side. So again, forward and backwards to lock in our stitches. And at the end, forward and backwards to lock in our stitches. Okay. Just trim all our tails. And then we're going to turn this the right way around, poking out our corners, because we want nice sharp corners on our cushion cover. There's our cushion cover. I'm just going to take it to the iron and give it a press. Okay, so I've given our cushion cover a press. Now, if you wanted to put a button and a buttonhole on this cushion cover like we do in the workshop, I just need to find out where the centre point is in this cushion cover. It should be about 7 inches across. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold it in half. So there's my opening, and I'm just going to fold it in half that way. And I'm going to press this with the iron to create a crease so I can see where I'm going to put my button. I don't know if you'll be able to see the crease on camera, but I can see it here. Okay, so I've got the button that I want to put on our cushion cover. I'm going to place the button, the centre of the button, in the middle of this crease. It's just above this hem that we created. And I'm going to put a little mark on the left-hand side of the button there, okay? And that mark is going to tell me where to start sewing our buttonhole, because when we put this into the machine, we're going to have to start sew the buttonhole from this direction. So there's the opening. We're going to have to sew it from this direction, and the machine will sew the buttonhole from the bottom upwards. So if we put a mark where the side of that button is, it's going to sew it from the button upwards there. Okay, so we're going to go back to the machine. I don't need the magnetic seam guide, I can take that off. So our machine comes with a buttonhole foot, and this is the buttonhole foot. This little bit moves up and down by there, and our button goes in there. We just move it down to fit it firmly in place. So depending on the size of button that we've got, this gap here between these two little white nodules will change, and that tells the machine what size buttonhole to create. So we need to attach this to our machine. So I'm going to remove the presser foot off the machine, and I'm going to attach this buttonhole foot to the machine. So the button goes away from you, and this little bit here goes towards you. Now this hole here, see this thread from our needle, only the one from the needle, we just want to pop it through that hole there so that we can get to the thread to the back of the machine, and then we're going to attach the buttonhole foot to the machine. Okay. Now also on our machine, just at the side here, there's a little arm. It's got a picture of a buttonhole on it, and we need to pull it down, and it needs to sit behind this first white nodule. Not sure if you can see that there. So it sits behind this first white nodule. On this machine, I'm going to use a buttonhole stitch, and I'm going to use number 26. Okay, and this machine is a one-step buttonhole feature, so it's nice and easy. So where we created that buttonhole, that little mark on our fabric, on our cushion cover, is where we're going to start sewing the buttonhole. We need to see that little mark in this window here that we've put the thread down. So we're just going to take one layer of the cushion cover. Make sure you don't take more than one layer, and we're going to slide it underneath here. Okay, we're going to look for the little black mark in the window. Put the press foot down to keep it in place. Make sure this edge here is nice and straight, because we don't want to sew a wonky buttonhole. And then all we're going to do is we're going to put our foot on the presser pedal, on the foot pedal, and the machine will create the buttonhole for us. Now it creates it in stages. It does one side, it does the top, it does the other side, and it does the bottom. We just keep our foot on the foot pedal, and what will happen is the machine will, when it's finished, it will slow down slightly. It'll do 1 or 2 slow stitches, and then it'll stop completely. Once it's stopped, that buttonhole is complete. Now the buttonhole is just some stitching, it's not a hole as yet. What we need to do is we need to open it with our seam ripper. So in this seam ripper there's a little blade right in that V, and we're going to use that to slice the fabric and open the buttonhole. Now we don't want to cut the edges of our buttonhole, so here, this bit here, or this bit here, if we slice through that, then we've wrecked our buttonhole. Okay, so I've put 2 pins in, one before those stitches just by there, and one just before those stitches at that end as well. And then I'm going to take my seam ripper, I'm going to place the spike down into the fabric, and I'm going to slide it along. Now this can be quite fiddly. There you go, I'm just going to slide it along, and then what will happen is it will reach that pin and it won't go any further. It won't cut into our stitches and ruin our buttonhole. Take the pins out, and we should then have a buttonhole that is the correct size for our button. Ta-da! Perfect. Okay, so we can take our presser foot off this machine now, the buttonhole presser foot. We took the buttonhole presser foot off, and we're going to pop on this second presser foot. This is a button foot. You see it's got these 2 little blue feet here. They go towards you, and I'm just going to pop that onto the machine because we're going to sew our button in place. So I've got 4 holes on this button that I've got here. We're going to sew this onto the cushion cover with a zigzag stitch. So on this machine our zigzag stitch is 0.4. Okay, so on this machine our zigzag stitch is 0.4, and it's automatically set a stitch length of 1.4 and a stitch width of 3.5. Now the stitch length on a zigzag stitch is how far down it's going to zigzag. So we're going to zigzag in and out 2 of the holes in the button, so we don't want any length to our stitch, we don't want it to go anywhere at all. So I'm going to reduce this down to 0.0, and on the back of my machine I've got a button that will lower these feed dogs here, which means, because these feed dogs pull the fabric through the machine and I don't want it to go anywhere. It shouldn't do if I've got 0.0 on the stitch length, but just in case, I'm going to press this button, slide this button across, and that lowers my feed dogs. Okay, so I'm going to take my cushion cover, and I'm going to place a mark right in the centre of this buttonhole to show me where to sew my button on, and there it is there. Okay, let's bring the machine back. I'm going to place this fabric underneath the, just that one layer, with the mark that I've made in the centre of the presser foot, and I'm going to place my button underneath the presser foot, and I'm going to work just using the 2 top holes of the button for now, and they are going to go horizontally in between the 2 blue feet. Okay, so what I'm then going to do is I'm going to use my hand wheel. I'm going to wind my hand wheel towards me, and hopefully it's going to go down 1 hole on the button. It does, and then it's going to jump across and go down the second one. There you go. And once I know that it clears both those holes, then I can put my foot down and sew that in place. Okay, if you had a button with 2 holes, you'd now be done, but I've got 4 holes, so I'm just going to raise my needle out of the cushion cover, move my button slightly. I'm going to test it again. Always test it with your hand wheel first. Don't just put your foot down on the foot pedal, because if you don't clear the holes, then you're going to break your needle. Okay, so if, for example, your buttonholes were wider apart, you would need to increase the width on your machine. So where it's got 3.5 here, you'd need to increase that to make the needle jump further across. Just always test it with your hand wheel. If your holes are closer together, then you decrease that stitch width there. Okay, and then that's it. I'm just going to cut the threads really close to the button. Okay, so that's it. Our cushion cover is finished. We've created our buttonhole. We've sewn our button on. The button should go through the buttonhole perfectly, and that's it. One beautiful envelope cushion cover. Now, of course, you don't need to put decorative stitching on. You don't need to do a button and a buttonhole. If you just want to do a nice basic envelope cushion cover, you could just do that in straight stitching and treat that as the back of your cushion cover, and that is your front. But we've put a bit of decoration on ours and a button to make a bit of a feature, so that would be our front. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you would like to attend any of the workshops at Sew Me How, they're all listed on our website, www.sewmehowchester.co.uk, and I'll put a link below. Look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.